Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on X at Movies TV Mad and on Instagram and on Threads at Movies TV Mad X. A very warm welcome to Thursday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. We may have not have had a DC Universe Daily yesterday, but we're going to really make up for it today. So welcome to today's show. On today's show, we'll be talking about what might have been for a more superior, greater, more epic Flash movie as Jay Oliver dishes more dirt on what Rick Famuyiwa, or however you pronounce the director's name, had planned for the original Flash movie. And it's a lot better and more epic and more exciting than Andres Muschietti gave us with the Flash movie. Not really Andres Muschiett's fault that the Flash turned out the way it did, but it wasn't great. I think we should all at least admit that. Also on today's show, they are down to two actresses to play Supergirl in James Gunn's DC Universe Supergirl movie, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, and of course she'll be involved in the whole universe. So it's down to Millie Alcock and Meg Donnelly. I will tell you what my preference is between both those actresses as well. And yet again, James Gunn confuses fans when he tells them he's got a picture on his phone with David Corenswet in his Superman costume. Unfortunately, it's not the Superman costume that he'll be wearing in Superman Legacy. That's what we're covering on today's DC Universe Daily. So are you ready? Okay, then I shall begin. We know originally Rick Famuyiwa was going to direct the Flash movie. I really can't pronounce that surname. Should we stick with Rick? Yes, I think I will. Maybe it's my dyslexia that's the problem, and not that the guy's name is difficult to pronounce. So I'm sorry, Rick, you're a great director, and I mean you know disrespect. Anyway, originally Rick was going to direct the Flash movie. Zack Snyder wanted him to direct the Flash movie, and there was a big plan for the Flash movie. It was going to be very, very exciting. So let's have a look and see what they had planned. Jay Oliver says Rick Famuyiwa's The Flash movie would have laid the groundwork for Eobard Thawne to be the major villain in Zack Snyder's DCEU. Now, we've heard this before. It was Professor Zoom pulling the strings because he had come from the future to basically fuck with Barry in the Flash movies. Zoom would be the villain in the background, but also in the ancillary other films. You would see some of the influences of Zoom on the rest of the Justice League. Wow, 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 and just wow. It's time for you idiot hacks to delete all your videos titled with Why the DCEU Failed, because most of you blame Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder was going to give us an unconventional franchise, which is exactly what DC needed. Man of Steel, unconventional Superman film, great. BVS, unconventional Batman and Superman movie, great. Zack Snyder's Justice League, an unconventional take on a Justice League movie, great. One of the best superhero movies, comic book movies ever made. But no, real DC fans wanted to be like the MCU. And that's the reason why that franchise failed. Not because of Zack Snyder at the end of the day, but wow, we could have had something utterly special. But no, we didn't have it. We weren't allowed to have it. It was taken away from us. And from the moment they started firing directors like Rick, because Rick is a great director, they got rid of him. He had big plans. We were going to have Cyborg in that Flash movie. We were going to build out a beautiful friendship between the Flash and Cyborg, aka Ezra Miller and Ray Fisher. But no, all of that was taken away from us. So when you ask the question, why the DCEU failed, it wasn't because of what Zack Snyder was doing, it's because of what Zack Snyder wasn't allowed to do. And it's very, very sad. We could have had something utterly special here. I mean, imagine it. Zoom, Professor Zoom, manipulating the multiverse, manipulating the DCEU, having Eobard Thawne be a villain in the first Flash movie. Instead, in the Flash movie, we actually got Barry's mother dies. She's stabbed. We don't know who does it. They're not really, what's crazy about this Flash movie we actually got, they're not actually interested at all within the narrative in who actually fucking killed the woman. They never mention it. Barry's not interested. I mean, imagine it, right? His father is in jail, but they never seem to be that interested in actually who killed the woman, right? What is Barry's greatest mission? Oh, to see if Barry's dad's looking up on the CCTV, right? Obviously, that would prove that he's shopping instead of killing his wife. I get it, right? But there's no mention in that film about who might have killed the woman instead. And it's weird. It's just weird. They're not even interested in that. They step over all of that. And to me, it's absolutely insane. We had Rick, who was going to direct the movie. Rick, who's a brilliant director. They were going to use Dr. Zoom, Eobard Thawne. It was going to be amazing, And people accuse the DCEU of being not comic book accurate. In fact, in a lot of places, they're quite faithful with the source material. It's just the darker source material that Zack Snyder wanted to play with. But so what if it isn't comic book accurate? So this is the real reason that the DCEU didn't succeed. Zack Snyder had a great take and a great vision for the DCEU, and he was never allowed to finish that off. It's funny listening to Zachary Levi say that he was faulted, or the production of Shazam! Fury of the Gods was faulted by The Rock at every turn. Now you know what Zack Snyder was going through with WB, who was also faulted at every turn. And all the good stuff that Zack was going to give DC fans was taken away. So as I say, delete your wider DCEU failed videos, because this is actually why the DCEU failed. Just like Eobard Thawne was going to fuck with the Flash in Rick's Flash movie, WB, Johns and all the rest of them, Jeff Johns and the rest of them were fucking and messing with Zack. That's why the DCEU failed at the end of the day. It's not a debate. It's a statement of fact. Anything else is a lie. You look at the situation with Martha in BVS. The people who hated Zack took that and weaponized it, right? The whole Martha thing. Now, we all know what the Martha thing meant. It wasn't just because they had both their mothers had the same name. It was deeper than that. I found it kind of emotional. And I got it. Everybody got it, but people who wanted to weaponize it, weaponized it. And we all understand that. Now, personally, I wouldn't have used the Martha thing for a reason to stop them fighting, because it's obvious people who want to weaponize that moment will. And you never give people that opportunity. But I get it. When I rewatch the movie, I love it. I think it's an okay reason for them to stop fighting. It's fine with me. But as I say, if you want to weaponize something, especially in this era of social media, you can weaponize anything with your words if you're clever enough to do so. But Zack Snyder had a very interesting take on these DC characters, on these iconic DC characters, and to think we were going to get that Flash movie from Zack and Rick would have been amazing. But instead, what we got was a subpar Flash movie. Yes, we got a subpar Flash movie. Yes, Supergirl was okay. The Supergirl that's supposed to be replacing Superman in the DCEU was okay. Michael Keaton's Batman was okay. It doesn't make it a great movie, and those awful CGI cameos or AI cameos or whatever the fuck they were, right, didn't work. The movie's a mess. That's why the movie flopped. People are not stupid, right? The movie flopped for a reason. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't about marketing. They marketed the fuck out of the Flash movie. They had people seeing the movie at CinemaCon lying that it was a great movie, because it was a lie. Everyone in that room watching that movie knew that movie was a piece of shit. Once upon a time, it was a good movie, but they didn't allow that good movie to come out. Once upon a time, Wonder Woman 84 was a much better movie than the movie we got in theatres. It's like Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. A better movie. That's not just from me saying this, it's from Dolph Lundgren, an actor in the movie, saying there's a better movie there, but they cut the shit out of it, right? You know, this Flash movie, the original Flash movie we were going to get from Rick and Zack, was going to be amazing, and it was going to set up the threat that's manipulating the rest of the DCEU. But we can't get good things. So I just hope that James Gunn does give us good DC things, that he's allowed to do the things that he wants to do, unlike Zack Snyder. Because WB robbed us of a great franchise. Now, whether you like Zack Snyder or not, it's very difficult to judge what Zack was doing because he wasn't allowed to finish what he was doing. And that, my friends, is the huge problem with this. When I read this, because this is an old story, resurfacing yet again, but I think it's an interesting one to talk about because, again, it goes to show you the real reason why the DCEU failed. Because from the moment Zack Snyder left DC, stopped making the films, stopped being involved with the films, and I know he's got his name on executive producer credits and producer credits, doesn't mean nothing. He had nothing to do with those shitty films, right? There's lots of reasons why people have producer credits and executive producer credits, right? They get some money, they get some royalties, that's great. It doesn't mean they have anything to do with the crafting of those movies. But when you see Zack Snyder as a co-writer of the first Wonder Woman movie, you know he had a lot to do with the creative output of that movie and the stuff he was responsible for in that movie that he's not even credited for, which is disgusting. They tried to credit him for Justice League while calling him the director, because a lot of the footage was originally done by him. So he had to be listed as the director. But people actually thought Zack Snyder made that film because it says directed by Zack Snyder. It says a Zack Snyder film. But a film isn't just the director's film because they shot the footage. You know, it's all to do with the editing and, you know, the narrative of the movie. And Justice League wasn't Zack Snyder's narrative. But people don't give a shit. They started running with it being Zack Snyder's movie when it never was. And the people like us, the real fans who were in the know, absolutely got that while we were fighting to release the Snyder Cut. This, what I've just read you, is more evidence that Zack Snyder was giving us something very, very interesting. Flash fans, comment down below. What do you think of this revelation? That you were going to get Dr. Zoom, right? That you were going to have Eobard formed, right? In the Flash movie. And this was the beginning of having, you know, a Flash villain manipulating the rest of the DCEU. Isn't that huge for you? Isn't that something that you would have preferred? This comes from Zack Snyder. This is what Zack Snyder, a director that many of you do not like. Does that change your mind about him? Do you feel you were robbed as a Flash fan? Because I feel robbed as a DC fan, so you must feel robbed as a Flash fan. So let me know in the comments down below. I'd be very, very interested to see what you would say about this. I'm glad in a way that it's Gunn running DC now. Not that I want Gunn instead of Zack, but it's better that you got someone, a director, co-running a studio. Hopefully he does what he wants to do. Nobody tells James Gunn what to do. So if he's doing the right things, it's good that he's not being interfered with by the studio. And we'll see the results of Superman Legacy. We'll see if it's any good, if James's plans for the DC Universe are any good. You know, the product, the film, the art will tell us that. We can't know if it's going to be good or not until we actually see it. Right, let's get on to this DC Universe news. So basically, I have an update for you on the casting process for Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, which puts Supergirl in her own movie, an adaptation from the graphic novel. And of course, I expect to see her a little bit in Superman Legacy as a cameo. I could be wrong about that, but I'm assuming they're getting through the process of casting her because they need her somewhat in a cameo in that movie, or maybe to play an even bigger role. We shall see. But there are two actresses left, and it's Meg Donnelly and it's Millie Alcock. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Millie was in House of Dragons, the Game of Thrones prequel series. And I think Meg Donnelly has already voiced Supergirl in animation. If I'm wrong and comfortable with that, you can correct me in the comments down below. If it was me, I'd like to see Meg Donnelly play the role. She looks like Supergirl. She's a bit more wholesome. And I think this would be good for young girls, to get young girls on board with it. Now, in terms of Millie Alcock, if you want to play a more rough and ready Supergirl, a more gladiator, a bit more rough around the edges Supergirl, I think Millie Alcock would be perfect for the role. So I don't really know what way they're going to go with this casting. It is very interesting. Both these actresses have worked with Warner Brothers before. That's an interesting situation. But yeah, both these actors, young actors, have got their qualities. I wouldn't be disappointed if one got it instead of the other, but I think Meg Donnelly, in terms of being a more marketable commodity as the character, I would definitely go for her. They're both very, very good young artists and performers, so I don't really have an issue, but yeah, I would probably prefer Meg Donnelly as the character, and we'll see how we get on with that one. And in your final update, James Gunn told a fan, I think on Threads or on some kind of social media platform, that he has a picture with David Corenswet in the Superman costume. So everyone was sharing this and getting really, really excited. Then James Gunn revealed that it's not the Superman costume. It's not the costume that he'll be wearing in Superman Legacy, and that's why he's probably not going to release it. Now, it's probably in the Man of Steel costume, because we know he wore that for his audition. And so I wouldn't expect to see him in that costume. It would be somewhat ironic if he ends up looking better in the Man of Steel costume than he does in the new costume, but that's just me being a bit of a shit stir and being a bit devilish, if you like. But yeah, I mean, I understand why they don't want to release him in that costume, because it is the Man of Steel costume. It is Henry Cavill's costume, of course, and that could cause some negativity. We don't get much negativity in the DC fandom, do we? We get quite a bit. It's a very divided fan base. Most fan bases are very divided anyway. So it's interesting that they actually mentioned that he wears the Man of Steel costume in the first place. I am very curious to see what David looks like in that costume. Has he? He's obviously tried the new costume out to see if it's a perfect fit and if it works and if they need any alterations of things like that. So I'm chomping at the bit to see this new costume. So when will we see David Corenswet in this new Superman costume for Superman Legacy? I think he'll either show it to us on the day they start shooting Legacy, but don't be surprised, and this would be more frustrating thing if it happens, if we don't see that picture when the shoot is completed. Probably more likely that he'll, because it's very James Gunn, isn't it? I enjoyed myself on the shoot. Here's a picture of me in David Collinsworth in the Superman costume, that could be a lot of fun. Now, we know there's going to be a lot of people with long lenses when they go out on location. It's very difficult to hide things when you're out on location. So it's going to be very interesting if we get a lot of kind of pictures from well-meaning fans shooting with long lenses when they're on location. So they don't start shooting till March. It's not actually, that long until that happens. So yeah, I'm very, very excited to see the new costume, because it is exciting to hear that we're nearly going to be casting a new Supergirl. It is exciting to know that there's a new costume to be revealed with a new Superman. Even though I'm frustrated and angry with the treatment of Zack Snyder and Henry Cavill and all the rest of it, David Ayer and all the rest of it, I'm still excited for Superman Legacy. I can be angry about that situation, but also be excited about the future with DC Universe, James Gunn, and Superman Legacy. I can have both feelings. I know a lot of people, or some people, want to boycott and things like that, and that's people's decisions. As I've said before, I'm not planning on boycotting anything. That's not the way that I swing. Anyway, we do have an exciting DC year. Some people may not think it's exciting because we don't have 6 movies coming up. I don't think we need that. And I think that's where oversaturation comes in. So what have we got? We've got Creature Commandos. We've got Penguin, which is pretty much the sequel to the Batman on Max as well. So, and then near the end of the year, in October, it's the big event. I think it's the biggest event. And that's Todd Phillips' Joker Folie à Deux, the sequel to his 2019 Joker movie. And I'm very, very, very excited to see a trailer for this movie, to see the movie. I can't wait. Now in October, I will be 52 years old, yeah. So I'm kind of wishing my life away as well. But I'm so hyped. I mean, to be honest, I'm not seeing a lot of hype for this movie yet. And I think people hearing that it may be a musical hasn't helped that hype. A lot of people believe that Joker should have been a one-off as well. That doesn't help. But I do expect this movie to do very well. I do expect this film to be very, very different in terms of the expectation of what type of CBM it's going to be. But for me, there may not be a lot of people hyped for this movie out there, but I believe once they see the trailer, because there wasn't that much hype at first for the original Joker movie until people saw that trailer. Once people saw that trailer, then the hype began. And of course, there was these discussions. Will people be shot by copycats and all that nonsense? And that just made people want to see the movie even more. It's probably the major reason why Joker made $1 billion. But don't get it twisted. When the Joker's in a DC film, the movie does well. Now, nobody really knew that we would get a little hint of the Joker in the Batman. So you can't really say, oh, it was successful because of the Joker. The Dark Knight, the Joker was in there, it made over $1 billion. Suicide Squad, Joker was in that, it nearly made $800 million, right? Joker movie, $1 billion. So every time Joker turns up in a movie, Batman 89, how could I forget that movie as well? Successful with the Joker. The Joker is a very popular DC character, but it goes beyond that. He's one of the most popular, most successful, beloved characters in fiction. And when he's in a DC movie, more often than not, the movies, at least in terms of financial success, really, really embraced in terms of the fans. So although a lot of people don't like Leto's Joker, the Suicide Squad, or the first Suicide Squad, should I say, because people may get confused with the sequel, which is called The Suicide Squad. It wasn't very kind of imaginative, just calling the sequel The Suicide Squad. But anyway, the first Suicide Squad movie nearly made $800 million. And you have to say it's because it was the first time in live action we were going to see Harley and the Joker together. And I think that is the most popular thing for Harley, to be with the Joker. Now, a lot of fans, like stan and ship her with, what's her name? The Green Woman. What's her bloody name? I've forgotten her name now. Poison Ivy, that's it. Yeah. I just went a blank. I just went a blank. But yeah, her relationship with Poison Ivy is popular with some. But with me, I think in terms of box office, you're going to make more money from Harley and the Joker than you will Poison Ivy and Harley. But it's all about opinion, and different people, prefer different things and have different preferences there. So it will be very interesting what type of Harley Quinn Lady Gaga gives us and what type of movie this is going to be. As I've said a billion times before, I don't expect this to be a pure musical. I expect no more than 3 songs in the movie in terms of the musical element of the film. Again, I could be wrong. I'm comfortable with being wrong. It's just a gut feeling. But we won't know anything until Todd Phillips starts talking about this movie and we see an actual trailer. Once Todd starts marketing this movie and starts being asked the pertinent questions, because he hasn't really spoken. While he's been making this movie, he hasn't been talking about this movie. He's posted a few things on Instagram that have been very, very helpful to me and other fans, who are excited for this movie. And I'm not saying people aren't hyped for this movie, but the buzz isn't on the internet yet. And I think it being kind of rumoured to be a musical didn't help the level of that hype either. But I don't think you should be put off by this movie just because it's going to have a few songs in it. If it's a total musical, again, don't be put off. It's just a different way of doing a comic book movie. It's like the first movie. It's a very different type of comic book movie. But for me, it absolutely works. It really is, a huge movie, a brilliant movie, one of the best CBMs, most successful, one of the most profitable comic book movies of all time. It is those things for a reason, because it's really, really good. Because it doesn't give you a black and white look at a character who is a villain, who actually is a murderer. It gives you a complex view at that character. So it's not about saying they're being sympathetic and making excuses about the Joker being the Joker and being a killer. It's not about that. Life isn't black and white. It's complicated. You're not a killer because you're male. You're not a killer because you're white. You're not a killer because necessarily you had a bad life, but you look at the complexities of the abuse and the psychological abuse he went through as a child, and it is a building block to what he became in the end. And whether or not these are the factors, or the fact that he was bullied and, abused by so many people in his life, you can only push people for so long. Some people you push in life, they wouldn't become a killer. But some people you push enough in life, then they will go the other way. So I think that film was a very interesting take in what can happen to an ordinary person if you push them too far. Abuse, bullying, and it's the type of society we live in today on social media. People pushing each other on different issues, and it happens all the time. And I think that's the factor that Todd Phillips was looking at. So Joker Folie à Deux doesn't put me off because it could be a full musical. In fact, it intrigues me even more. And I'll be in the cinema on opening day to see that movie because it's a DC movie. I'm hyped for it, and it's probably going to be the best DC movie we've probably seen since Joker, or at least the Batman. It's by an auteur. It's visionary. It's going to be different. That really excites me. So for me, it is an exciting year to be a DC fan, and I'm going to be all over all these projects. I mean, for example, Creature Commandos gives us the first look at James Gunn's DC universe and what he's actually playing at and planning for this universe. It will be interesting. I think we'll get a few surprises, a few characters in animation in that series we wasn't expecting. We don't even have a release date. We know it's coming out this year. As far as I know, we don't have a release date for that series. I don't think it's going to be in the first quarter of this year, probably in the second half of this year, but I'm very excited to see Creature Commando. So I think it's a huge year. And we've got the final season of Superman and Lois as well, which I can't wait to see how that series finishes as well.